lady friend. Got a minute? Welcome to the Women's Spotlight. Her light, her story. A space where we celebrate women leaders, entrepreneurs, and creators who show up with courage and purpose and authenticity. I'm your host, Tiffany, and in each episode, we shine a light on her story, the real journey behind the titles, the challenges, and the victories. Today, I'm so excited to introduce you to Kira Yeates. She is the lending assistant at BOM Bank. In our conversation, we're going to learn about Kira's story and how she shines light on her life's purpose. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's step into the spotlight together with Kira Yates. We're so glad to have you here with us today, Kira. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm feeling really excited. I'm glad to be here, be a part of this.
Well, thank you. And thank you for agreeing to do it. I
Yeah.
had the pleasure to meet Kira at a leadership conference for women back in March, and we connected, and I'm just so glad I was able to have her as a guest on today's show. So we're going to start off, Kira. I'm going to ask you, um, when you set aside titles and responsibilities, which you're known for doing, who is Kira at her core?
Kira at her core is somebody, gosh, a lot of things really that I've been discovering lately. I have a lot of intrinsic worth around creativity, art. I feel like I'm honest, competitive, driven, resilient. There are just so many things about me that are at my core that I've built on over the years.
Thank you for sharing it. I think we also have that in common about the creative, where we like to do
Hmm.
creative projects. So I do remember that when I met you.
Yeah.
So you had this light when I met you, you're just a very sweet soul. And so, again, I'm just so glad that you're able to be here with us today. And in part of with your job, I'm sure that you have to lead in doing something, whether it's at your job or, at your home or in your community. So, what shapes you as a leader? And as I stated, in any of those spaces, if you want to talk about all three, or you want to just talk about one, but what actually shapes you as a leader?
Yeah, of course. I feel like in the banking industry, we are definitely community leaders first and foremost. And before I got into banking, I will say that I was really lacking in the leadership quality department.
Okay.
I was young 20s, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my passions, my life, didn't really know how to harness those intrinsic values that I was talking about earlier. Um, and so when I got into banking, there was a really big push on volunteerism. And I didn't want to volunteer at first. I did it because somebody else told me to. But um, through volunteering with Little League, softball specifically, I figured out those intrinsic values in me, how to show up honestly for other people, how to be authentic, how humility can shape courage and push you to do greater and better things, and that light shines on other people. And I learned all of that through serving the community. And that really built the foundation for my leadership style. So
Okay.
I am a community servant leader 100%.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Um, I remember speaking to you about that too, which was interesting to me that you said was it a girls' volleyball?
It was girls softball,
Oh,
so
softball. I'm
9 years.
sorry. I don't know
No,
why
you're
I said
fine.
volleyball. Okay, it's girls softball. So,
Hmm.
were they like middle school students or high school students?
So these girls, 9U, so they're 8 and 9 years old.
Oh, they're younger.
Some of them just turned 10.
Okay.
They didn't have a coach for that age division. They had one team without a coach, and they were like, if we don't get a coach, these girls aren't going to be able to play. And so,
Oh.
of course, me tugging on my heartstrings, because I had originally just called to see, what was going on, test the waters. And
Hmm.
then here I am, please coach. No, we need somebody. Please do it. If you have any experience. And I was like, okay, I signed up. They didn't know how to throw a ball. They didn't know how to hit. They didn't know how to play the
Wow.
game. It was straight from scratch. And
Mm-hmm.
we had some other travel ball teams in our league. And so I really had to get organized. I had to
Mm-hmm.
reach out to other people, I had other coaches. How do you coach? What are the best coaching philosophies, styles? Like, how do I talk to these girls? How do I get them to respect me? How do I respect them? Like, how do I see them?
Mm-hmm.
And it was really uncomfortable putting myself out there at first. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you have a bunch of 9-year-olds looking at you and they're looking to you for support and telling them what to do. And I hadn't played softball at that point in like 5, 6 years, and hadn't really been watching it either. So I was nervous too with them.
Well,
But
y'all were learning together.
oh
Again,
yeah,
I know you knew how to play it, but and I know that had to touch, like you stated, your heartstrings, because when you do have really anyone looking up to you, but especially children, because they're so impressionable. So just to hear that they didn't know the basics, but that you were able to teach them that, I know that that
yeah,
makes you really feel like that you have that servant leadership, and the students are learning, team building and how to get
yeah.
along with each other, and when we don't always win, those types of things. So I'm sure that in your leadership, you're sharing that with them.
Yeah, and also, discovering that as they're evolving too, right? Because
Hmm.
I didn't know these things about myself. And like you said, all of a sudden here I am a role model.
Hmm.
And so I'm kind of forced to self-reflect on my habits and my patterns and maybe some negative things that I'm doing. I was
Hmm.
vaping in my car before practice and looking down at my vape. I'm like, oh, absolutely not. No, not in front of these girls. Like, I can't be
Hmm.
doing this. But
Hmm. Hmm.
just those small things that I didn't really notice before started becoming really aware of me because I was trying to model that behavior for them. So,
Exactly. The behavior that you expected them to exhibit as well. So I love hearing you
yes.
say that. Okay, so Kira, what inspires you to keep showing up even on hard days, whether that's at the bank or on the softball field with the girls that you work with
Yeah,
or
no,
coach?
I think that for me, what inspires me to show up is honestly myself. Thinking about where I was in the past and who young Kira was, even, young 20s Kira. I'm 26 now, so it wasn't that far behind me, but
Yeah.
thinking about those women, those girls, and what they wanted for me now and what I've achieved and what I'm continuing to achieve. It pushes me, it inspires me. I don't want to give up on myself. I've done it too many times in the past, and that's in the past. So,
Yeah. I love that. That's such a powerful point. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because like you just stated, even though you're 26, you're still looking back just a few years later and you're seeing some growth within you. So I'm so glad that the experiences that you're telling us that you are going through is really helping to shape who Kira is. I'm so
yes.
glad you stated that. So now
Thank you.
let's kind of shift a bit, and we're going to move into some self-care. And
Mm.
so I know self-care looks different for every woman. But I wanted to ask you, what does protecting your peace look like for you?
I think, and you made a great point, self-care does look different for every woman, but I really think that the central point to self-care and what it looks like for me is being honest with yourself and being able to get to a point of calm so you can have that logic come in. Because if stress and overwhelm are the first thing on your brain, you are not going to be able to get through that to even think of any solutions to get to that rest point. And maybe a solution is just like take a hot bath. But if I'm so upset and stressed out about task A, B, and C, my brain's never even going to tell me, hey, go take a hot bath.
Right.
So it really comes down to knowing how to stop myself, self reflect, what's going
Hmm.
on the inside? What do I need? And being honest about that, right? Not lying to
Hmm.
myself, oh, I can keep pushing, like I can do this. No. What are my strengths and weaknesses here? What do I need to do to succeed? If I need to take a break, I need to take a break. And then
Mhm.
that's where it differs for everybody, right? Like what we do and what
Mhm.
we choose with habit wise. But I definitely think being honest, learning how to be authentic, knowing how to self-reflect and measure those different things that are happening in you in those
Mhm.
moments, that's the core of it.
Well, you said a lot of great things, and that's why I'm nodding so much because, a lot of times we call it in school or in education, we talk about it being social emotional needs or social emotional learning. And part of that is the self-awareness, and then and to be aware, you have to reflect. So I love how you're bringing it all together. And I know as a coach, and even at work, I'm certain there may be times where you might have a young lady that might be overwhelmed with something, or maybe a coworker, and it just could be a task at work that they could be overwhelmed with. And I'm certain that the way that you seem to come off, you have a center around you, and I'm certain they must feel very calm if you have to ever talk to them about,
We buffered.
yes, yes. I love that. So, I know that we all have moments in our lives, that we run on empty, and then, we're chugging right along, and then something else comes up, another challenge. I mean, it's just part of life. So,
Mhm.
can you think of a moment, and I'm certain you can, but in your life that might have been a challenge for you, but you realized you had to bounce back? And then what helped you to be able to bounce back? Because you talk about being resilient. So, what
Yeah.
helped you to bounce back in that particular challenge or from that
Yeah.
challenge?
I actually, one I'm kind of in right now, that I'm attempting to resolve that we've talked about actually
Mhm.
with my school.
Uh-huh.
So I tried to go to school right out of high school. I had a full ride, to Loyola University in New Orleans.
Mm.
And like we talked about earlier, didn't know how to self-reflect. I didn't know how to be honest with myself. What are my strengths and weaknesses? I thought I had the energy to keep going, and I didn't. So when I got to Loyola, I became preoccupied with so many other things that was not school.
Mhm.
And it naturally just didn't work out. And I took
Mhm.
it really hard. I took it really, really hard. I'm a perfectionist, straight A student, always trying to do the best, and I let it get to me. I got really upset. I got with the bank, and I started volunteering. And like I said before, that volunteerism kind of sparked re-sparked that passion for school in me again. And I just started thinking, I was like, maybe I can do this.
Mhm.
Maybe I can pursue this. This isn't something totally off the table for me like I thought. And
Mhm.
so through that kind of pessimistic to optimism flip-flop, um, I worked really hard on paying off my student debt from collections so that, I could sign back up for class. I hit another
Wonderful.
snag. How am I going to fund this? And it just,
Mhm.
it felt like there was just all of this pressure pushing me and pushing me and pushing me from going back to school. And I had to sit down with myself and be like, is this something that's challenging me that I can overcome, or is this something that I cannot control and I cannot overcome? And that moment
Okay.
came this summer when I had my school money ready for this fall and everything was a go. And all of a sudden, my stipend money disappeared and I
Oh.
was having to pay out of pocket. How am I going to do this? And now
Mhm.
another thing is on the line in this string of unfortunate events. But I decided that school was something I really wanted to do, something for myself, something
Mhm.
past Kira,
Mhm.
wasn't able to achieve for herself. And like I said earlier, I wanted to do it for her. I want to do it for me. And so this year's been a push, but I successfully finished my first semester back.
Well,
I only did two
congratulations.
classes. Thank you.
Mhm.
But yeah, everything went great. And I feel like I'm finally over that hump, over
Mhm.
that we can call it a failure at Loyola. I feel like we're past it. I'm
Mhm.
starting a new chapter, turning a new leaf.
Mhm.
I feel really good.
Well, it's so important to think about that we learn from what we may call a failure or a mistake. And I think because I hear you saying perfectionism, and that's been an issue for me through my life as well, because I always wanted to do things right. And then realize that sometimes not doing something or thinking that I didn't do something right might have been a detour for me to try something else. So, first of all, I'm
Yeah.
very happy to hear that you have started, and then just starting with the two classes, that's great. And so now I know you're going to be ready to start moving right along. Are you still thinking about going into education?
I'm thinking that is kind of the focus through, like I
Okay.
said, volunteering, serving the community. I
Hmm.
really love educating people. I love training people on things that I know about and sharing knowledge. And we're all
Hmm.
on the same page here. I
Yes,
don't know necessarily what area I want
exactly.
to
Yeah.
do that
Okay.
in, and
Hmm.
I'm hoping that through school I'll be able to find out.
Yes. And one reason I brought that up, because I know that's again what connected us to talk. Um, but just hearing you, talk about that you volunteered, then you started working at the bank, then you do training at the bank, and then you
Yes.
weren't really expecting to be a softball coach, but then you're a softball coach. And all of those are great assets to have when whether whatever part of education, whether it's, going to be younger students or higher education. But all of that, hearing you say that, this is all just preparation that's getting you ready for whatever it is that you're going to decide to do. So
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. And
Thank you.
so you're welcome. So moving from that, because we know that again, as part of self-care, you do want to continue to have the resiliency to be as optimistic as you can, but we're still human. So is there a certain mindset that you try to have, or maybe a routine that you do to kind of keep yourself centered, so that you can make sure that you can pour back into whoever it is that you may be leading? One thing I
Yes.
heard you say was that, maybe taking a bath. So is that one of the ways that you kind of center yourself? Do you like taking hot baths?
I do like taking hot baths, but I actually have a better one for you, one that I do more
Okay.
often than that, even though that's very relaxing, very nice.
Hmm.
Um, I actually find that when, general optimism isn't doing it for me or goal constructing, the normal things that I do to get out of my tizzies. Um, I love going camping. I love being in nature. I find that when I completely disconnect from, social media,
Hmm.
people, it really helps me clear the noise and get in tune with myself and my needs. And usually my needs are, I just need quiet. I just need my brain to settle for a little bit. I need that peace of not thinking what's for dinner tonight, or what do I
Hmm.
have to do at work tomorrow? When's that meeting going to be? All of that's
Hmm.
gone. It's gone. And it really gives my brain a break. And when I come back, my phone's dinging and stuff. I'm just, ha, this is
Hmm.
fun. This is funny. I'm in such a better mood. And it's crazy how
Hmm.
grounding nature can be.
Yes. Yes. Well, again, thank you for sharing that so much, Wiz. And that is so important that people need to understand. Sometimes just disconnecting from the phones, because I know that's pretty much what this our lives are now. It's just
Yeah.
so dependent on so much technology. But I'm
Mhm.
so glad to hear you say that, you just go
Yeah.
back to nature. That
Well,
is so
and even in this area, like the Red River Wildlife Refuge, you don't have to be a camping enthusiast to be able to enjoy the pleasures of God's creations around us. Like there
Mhm.
are places like that refuge where you can go. They have walking trails. I'm not trying to promote them, but it is one of my more favorite places to go to when, I can't just go and camp.
Yes, well, I'm so glad you even brought that up, because there may be people in the area that may not even know about it, and so that's very nice to hear you say they can try to go there and see if that would be a refuge for them. So thank you again for letting us know about that area. So as we start to kind of wrap up, I did want to ask. If you notice, I'm back to either it might be at work, it might be a friend, it could be a family member, it might be one of your students that you coach. Um, sometimes you can tell that somebody's having a tough time. Maybe I don't like to necessarily say it this way, but it's almost like that they have a light and it's all of a sudden you see it's dim. So if you had to say something to a woman who may have forgotten how bright their light really is there something that you would what would be something that you would say to them to try to get them lit up again?
Yeah, so I can actually come back to softball for this one because I had a few girls that they would, maybe I'm training them, teaching them, and they're just not getting the skill or they're just not getting the motion and they're just getting really down on themselves. And something that I really like to do that would pep them up is I believe that you believe. I believe that you believe in yourself. Even if it feels like you don't believe in yourself right now, there's
Mm-hmm.
always that little part of you that is. It might just be covered up, but I believe you believe. And courage breeds confidence.
Yes,
Be
it does.
courageous, put yourself out there and just try. I
Mm-hmm.
believe you believe.
Mm-hmm. And then
So,
you'll
yeah,
see some of them who might be kind of afraid, or maybe whatever the skill is that they're doing for softball, you've seen them grow in that because
they
you've talked to
try.
them and coached them through that.
Yeah, they get
That's
that
wonderful.
confidence through that courageous moment of
Mm,
trying. They say,
of
"Oh,
trying.
I can do this," or maybe they fail again and they realize the world hasn't ended. This is fine. I can do it again. I can fail again and again. And they
Right.
get better and they
Yeah.
see that and that belief of I believe you believe reaffirms in them because they're like, wow, if I believe in myself, good things happen to me. I
Mhm.
grow.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, anybody who feels like their light is dimming or they just don't really know, maybe they're feeling a little aimless. There's
Hmm.
always that little part in yourself that does believe in you and wants the best for you. Sometimes it's just covered up. You have to dust it
Hmm.
off with little courage and
I
believe in
love
yourself.
that. I love how you just brought all that together. I don't think I've heard it quite that way, but I love that you tell them that because that does let them know that inside of me, I have an identity that I always go back to our identity, of course, is in God. And I know everybody
Mhm.
may have different beliefs, but just believing in yourself and knowing, that your identity starts to grow the more you become self-aware and as you stated, being honest with yourself. And then like
Yes.
letting them know that it's okay to make a mistake because you're learning from it. Because I haven't played softball in so long. But when I played, it was because it was something that we did in PE. But I know
Right.
that I wasn't the best at sports, but I did try and look like the more I tried, the better I would get at it. So I would tell kids all the time, like sometimes if they're having trouble reading, and I may say, well, hey, do you love sports? And they say, yeah. I said, what kind of sports do you play? And they'll tell you football, basketball, something like that. And I said, well, how do you get better at that sport? And they'll say, I practice. I said, so how do you think you get better at reading? I said, so just like you're, practicing with your body and moving
Hmm.
muscles physically, your brain is where we're using that
It's a
muscle.
muscle.
Right.
Hmm.
So I just, all of that brings back, like I said, I think we just connect so much with, some of our similar experiences. And I'm just so happy that, whatever area you decide to go in, if it is education, I'm so glad I got a chance to meet you on that journey. So one thing I do want to ask, and you kind of said it earlier when you talked about the younger Kira, because that was going to be a question that I
Yeah.
had for you was if you could tell the younger Kira a message, what would you want her to know?
So if I had to tell younger Kira a message, I would probably reference Disney because younger Kira loved Disney. I still love Disney, but I've toned it down a bit because of my husband.
Okay.
He's like, but I would tell younger Kira, in the classic words of Dory from Finding Nemo, I would tell her, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And one thing before we close, I'm not sure if, because I heard you say, you kind of disconnect from social media. when you need to, ground yourself. Is there a way if people did want to maybe contact you through BOM? Is there some way that you would like to share how they can connect with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. You can go on my Facebook page or even
Okay.
my LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great way if you want to connect professionally. My
Yes.
Facebook page is a great way if you want to connect on my softball or
Oh, yeah.
community volunteering side. So yes, I
Okay.
would love it if people reached out.
Okay. And is there like, is it just Kira Yates on
Yeah, it's
LinkedIn
Kira
and on?
Wallace. It's Kira
Okay.
Wallace on Facebook.
Okay.
And on LinkedIn, I can send you my profile
Okay. And
link
I'll just
and
put it
we
in
can
that.
post it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that with us because you just never know. They may have a question and they'll come see you
Yeah.
at the bank.
Yes,
So,
no,
okay.
you're
Well, I
welcome.
wanted to say, again, thank you for joining us and, sharing your story with us on the Women's Spotlight, her light and her story. And I hope for our audience that today's conversation with Kira Yates inspired you to keep shining your light and walking confidently in your own story. So if you love this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and join me for the next time that I get a chance to celebrate the incredible journey of women like Kira and other women along the leadership spectrum. So until then, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep shining. And see you next time, my lady friend. Thanks again, Kira.
Thank you.
You're welcome.